I want to begin with something that may sound uncomfortable, maybe even painful. There are seasons in life when the greatest gift God, fate, destiny, or circumstance can give you is not more friends, not more support, not more applause, not more validation, but distance, silence, and solitude. Let me tell you something. Most people are terrified of being alone, not because solitude is painful, but because when the noise disappears, they are finally forced to meet themselves. And many people spend their entire lives avoiding that meeting. Think about this for a moment. You can walk into a crowded room and still feel lonely. You can have 10,000 followers and still feel empty. You can receive messages all day and still have no connection with your own soul. Because loneliness and solitude are not the same thing. Loneliness says nobody is with me. Solitude says, now I finally have time to become who I was meant to be. And that distinction changes everything. Years ago, I met a man who completely transformed the way I viewed success. He wasn't famous. He wasn't wealthy when I met him. He didn't have a large audience. In fact, most people would have overlooked him completely. Every morning at 5 o'clock, he would wake up, put on an old jacket, and walk alone for nearly an hour. No music, no phone, no podcasts, no distractions. Just him and his thoughts. One day I asked him, why do you walk alone every morning? He smiled and he said something I'll never forget. He said, because if I don't spend time leading myself, I'll spend the rest of the day being led by everyone else. What a powerful statement. If I don't spend time leading myself, I'll spend the rest of the day being led by everyone else. You see, here's what most people don't understand. The world is constantly trying to tell you who you should be. Social media has an opinion. Your friends have an opinion. Your family has an opinion. Your coworkers have an opinion. Strangers have opinions. Everyone has instructions for your life. But very few people ever create enough silence to hear their own voice. And when you never hear your own voice, you spend years building a life that doesn't belong to you. You chase goals you don't even want. You impress people you don't even respect. You buy things you don't even need. You become successful by society's standards while feeling empty inside because somewhere along the journey, you lost contact with yourself. And intentional solitude is the road back home, not isolation, not hiding, not running away from responsibility. Intentional solitude, there is a difference. Isolation weakens you. Solitude strengthens you. Isolation is escaping people. Solitude is discovering yourself. Isolation is fear. Solitude is growth. Think about every great transformation story you've ever heard. The athlete training before dawn. The entrepreneur working after everyone sleeps. The artist practicing when nobody is watching. The author writing chapter after chapter in an empty room. The visionary spending years developing ideas before the world notices. Growth often happens in private before it becomes visible in public. The roots grow before the tree rises. And yet modern culture teaches us something completely different. It teaches us to fear silence. The moment we are alone, we reach for a screen. The moment we are uncomfortable, we seek distraction. The moment we feel uncertainty, we search for entertainment. Anything to avoid being alone with our own thoughts. But what if the answers you've been searching for are hiding inside the very silence you've been avoiding? Think about that. What if your next breakthrough is waiting in solitude? What if your next level requires separation? What if your future is asking you to spend more time listening and less time reacting? I learned something years ago. Your life changes dramatically when you become comfortable walking alone. Not because you stop loving people, not because relationships stop mattering, but because your identity stops depending on constant approval. And that's freedom. Real freedom. Imagine waking up every day, no longer needing everyone to agree with your decisions. Imagine pursuing your dreams even when nobody understands them. Imagine staying committed when nobody is cheering. Imagine remaining disciplined when nobody is watching. That kind of strength is built in solitude. Character is built in solitude. Discipline is built in solitude. Vision is built in solitude. Self-respect is built in solitude. You see, the crowd can motivate you, but only solitude can reveal you. And that's where the transformation begins. There was a young woman I once heard about who worked a regular job, nothing extraordinary, average income, average circumstances, average opportunities. But she had extraordinary determination. Every evening after work, she spent 2 hours alone learning new skills, no recognition, no applause, no audience. While her friends spent their evenings scrolling endlessly through distractions, she invested in herself day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. The compound effect began working. And here's the fascinating thing about the compound effect. It doesn't care whether you're famous. It doesn't care about your background. It doesn't care where you started. Small actions repeated consistently create extraordinary outcomes, and solitude creates the environment where those small actions can happen. Eventually, that woman changed careers, then doubled her income, then started helping others. People looked at her success and called her lucky, but they never saw the lonely evenings. They never saw the sacrifices. They never saw the silent investment. They saw the harvest. They never saw the planting. And that's how success works. The world celebrates public victories, but victories are born in private. Here's what most people don't understand about intentional solitude. It doesn't just improve your success. It improves your judgment. When you're constantly surrounded by noise, your thinking becomes borrowed. You begin absorbing opinions without examining them. You start reacting instead of reflecting. You become emotionally manipulated by whatever is loudest. But solitude creates clarity, and clarity creates power. Think about a muddy glass of water. Shake it continuously, and it remains cloudy. Leave it still long enough, and everything settles. Your mind works the same way. Most people don't need more information. They need more reflection. They don't need another motivational video. They need time to process what they've already learned. They don't need another strategy. They need enough silence to recognize the strategy they've been ignoring. And that's why walking alone can become one of the most powerful habits in your life. A simple walk. No destination, no agenda, just movement and thought. Something remarkable happens when the body moves and the mind becomes quiet. Problems become clearer. Solutions emerge. Emotions settle. Perspective returns. The things that felt overwhelming suddenly become manageable. The things that seemed confusing suddenly make sense because wisdom often whispers. And whispers cannot be heard in crowded rooms. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat alone without any distraction? No phone, no television, no notifications, no music, just you. For many people, that question creates anxiety. And that anxiety reveals something important. If you cannot sit comfortably with yourself, how can you expect to build a fulfilling life with yourself? The relationship you have with yourself determines the quality of every other relationship. And solitude strengthens that relationship. You begin understanding your fears. You begin understanding your habits. You begin understanding your patterns. You begin understanding your potential. And once awareness increases, transformation becomes possible because you cannot change what you refuse to examine. There is another truth that people rarely talk about. Some levels of growth require temporary separation, not because other people are bad, but because environments influence identity. If you plant a seed in poor soil, it struggles. If you plant it in fertile soil, it flourishes. The same principle applies to your mind. Some people constantly feed your doubts. Some people constantly reinforce your limitations. Some people unintentionally keep you attached to an outdated version of yourself. And there comes a moment when growth requires space. The courage to spend time alone. The courage to hear your own thoughts. The courage to build your own standards. The courage to discover who you are when nobody else is defining you. That courage changes everything. I remember hearing about a man who felt trapped in life Every day looked the same. Wake up, work, complain, debt, sleep, eat, repeat. Years passed. Nothing changed. Then one day he made a simple decision. Every morning he would spend 30 minutes alone thinking about his future. 30 minutes. That's all. No magic. No secret formula. Just intentional reflection. At first, nothing happened. Then he started writing ideas. Then he started setting goals. Then he started noticing opportunities. Then he started taking action. Then his entire life began shifting. Because clarity precedes action. And solitude creates clarity. Most people are trying to change their results without changing their thinking. But results are downstream from thought. Champ the thinking. Champ the decisions. Change the decisions. Champ the actions. Champ the actions. Champ the future. That's the sequence. And solitude gives you access to the first step. Your thinking. Think about how many lives have been transformed simply because someone found the courage to spend time alone long enough to discover a better version of themselves. A version that wasn't controlled by fear. A version that wasn't addicted to approval. A version that wasn't limited by old stories. A version that was willing to grow. Because growth often begins with a difficult realization. The realization that nobody is coming to rescue you. And oddly enough, that realization is empowering. Because the moment you stop waiting for rescue, you start building strength. You start taking responsibility. You start taking ownership. You start becoming the architect of your future. And that journey usually begins in solitude. Not in the spotlight, not in the crowd, not on the stage. But alone. With your thoughts. With your dreams. With your fears. With your possibilities. There is a conversation that happens in solitude that can never happen anywhere else. It's the conversation between who you are and who you could become. And that conversation changes lives because deep down, every person knows there is more inside them. More courage, more discipline, more creativity, more leadership, more wisdom, more potential. The tragedy is not lacking potential. The tragedy is never creating enough space to discover it. And so people drift through life carrying greatness they never uncover, talent they never develop, dreams they never pursue, ideas they never act upon, because distraction became their lifestyle. And distraction is expensive, not financially, existentially. It costs you years, it costs you opportunities, it costs you growth, it costs you the person you could have become. That's why intentional solitude is not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's maintenance for the mind, training for the spirit, development for the character. And when you begin practicing it consistently, something fascinating starts happening. Your confidence changes. Not because people praise you more, but because you know yourself better. Your decisions improve. Not because life becomes easier, but because your thinking becomes clearer. Your resilience grows. Not because challenges disappear, but because your inner foundation becomes stronger. And then one day, you realize you no longer fear walking alone. In fact, you welcome it because you understand something most people never learn. The road to extraordinary success is often quiet. The road to extraordinary character is often lonely. The road to extraordinary wisdom is often walked in solitude. And while the crowd is searching for comfort, you are searching for growth. While the crowd is seeking entertainment, you are seeking understanding. While the crowd is reacting to life, you are intentionally designing it. And as that habit compounds over months and years, something remarkable begins happening inside you. You stop measuring your worth by popularity. You stop measuring your value by attention. You stop measuring your identity by comparison. Instead, you begin measuring your life by progress. And progress is addictive in the most beautiful way. Because once you experience the satisfaction of becoming stronger, wiser, calmer, more disciplined, more focused, more intentional, you begin realizing that the greatest competition was never other people at all. It was the lesser version of yourself. And every walk alone becomes a conversation with that future version waiting ahead. For years, that future version has been calling your name, not shouting, not demanding, just waiting patiently on the other side of your excuses, waiting on the other side of your distractions, waiting on the other side of your comfort zone. And every time you choose intentional solitude, every time you choose reflection over reaction, every time you choose growth over entertainment, you take another step toward becoming that person. Let me tell you something that changed my life. Pain is inevitable, but suffering from unnecessary regret is optional. Think about that. Pain will visit every life. Failure will visit every life. Disappointment will visit every life. Loss will visit every life. Nobody escapes those experiences, but regret is different. Regret is looking back 20 years from now and wondering what might have happened if you had believed in yourself. Regret is meeting the person you could have become and realizing you never gave them a chance. Regret is discovering that your greatest limitations were never external. They were internal. And intentional solitude helps you confront those limitations before they become lifelong regrets. Because when you're alone long enough, something interesting happens. Your excuses become harder to believe. You begin hearing yourself more clearly. You begin recognizing patterns. You begin noticing how often you've blamed circumstances, how often you've blamed timing, how often you've blamed luck, how often you've blamed other people. And then one day, sitting quietly with your thoughts, a difficult truth appears. The truth that personal responsibility is not a burden, it's a superpower. Because the moment you take responsibility, you gain influence. The moment you take ownership, you gain control. The moment you stop blaming, you start building. And builders create futures. Victims create explanations. I learned something years ago from an elderly mentor. He told me, your life improves when your standards improve. Simple words, but profound wisdom. Your life improves when your standards improve. Not your wishes, not your intentions, not your dreams. Your standards, because standards determine behavior. Behavior determines outcomes. Outcomes determine direction. And solitude gives you the opportunity to examine your standards honestly. When nobody is watching, what do you tolerate? When nobody is applauding, how hard do you work? When nobody is checking, how disciplined are you? When nobody is encouraging you, how committed are you? Those questions reveal character, and character determines destiny. You see, the world has become obsessed with visible success. Everybody wants the result. Very few people want the process. Everybody wants confidence. Very few people want the habits that create confidence. Everybody wants achievement. Very few people want the discipline that achievement demands. Everybody wants the mountain. Very few people want the climb. But solitude teaches you to fall in love with the climb, to appreciate the process, to respect the daily disciplines, to understand that greatness is not an event. Greatness is accumulation. It's accumulated effort, accumulated wisdom, accumulated discipline, accumulated consistency, accumulated integrity. And these things are usually developed when nobody is paying attention. Think about the bamboo tree. For years, it appears as though nothing is happening. Nothing visible, nothing impressive, nothing exciting. But beneath the surface, roots are spreading, strength is developing, foundations are being established. Then suddenly, growth becomes explosive. People see the growth and call it sudden. But it wasn't sudden. The preparation was simply invisible. And your life may be in one of those seasons right now. A season where it feels like nobody notices. A season where progress seems slow. A season where effort feels unrewarded. A season where you're questioning whether the work matters. Let me tell you something. The roots matter. The invisible work matters. The quiet preparation matters. The lonely mornings matter. The difficult choices matter. The walks alone matter. Because what is happening beneath the surface eventually determines what becomes visible above it. I remember hearing about a young man who spent years trying to fit in. He adjusted his personality for every group, changed his opinions to gain acceptance, altered his dreams to avoid criticism, laughed when everyone laughed, agreed when everyone agreed, followed when everyone followed. And for a while, it seemed to work. People liked him. People accepted him. People included him. But there was one problem. He no longer knew who he was. He had become a collection of other people's expectations. And that is one of the most dangerous forms of failure. Losing yourself while trying to be accepted. One day, exhausted and frustrated, he began spending time alone. At first, it felt uncomfortable. Then it felt strange. Then it felt enlightening. Because for the first time in years, he could hear his own thoughts, his own dreams, his own values, his own convictions. And little by little, he rebuilt his identity. Not based on popularity. Not based on approval, but based on truth. And once that happened, something extraordinary occurred. His confidence became unshakable because authentic confidence doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being aligned. Aligned with your values. Aligned with your purpose. Aligned with your principles. Aligned with who you truly are. And alignment is often discovered in solitude. Here's what most people don't understand about confidence. Confidence is not built by avoiding difficulty. Confidence is built by surviving difficulty. Every promise you keep to yourself creates confidence. Every commitment you honor creates confidence. Every challenge you overcome creates confidence. Every disciplined action creates confidence. And where are most of those battles fought? Alone. Nobody sees them. Nobody records them. Nobody celebrates them. But they matter because character is what you repeatedly do when nobody is watching. Think about the extraordinary people you've admired throughout your life. Maybe it was a teacher. Maybe it was a parent. Maybe it was a coach. Maybe it was a leader. What made them extraordinary? It wasn't perfection. It was consistency, the ability to keep showing up, the ability to keep moving forward, the ability to remain committed despite obstacles. And that ability is cultivated through intentional solitude because solitude teaches emotional independence. It teaches you how to generate motivation internally. It teaches you how to stay focused without external pressure. It teaches you how to remain steady when emotions fluctuate. And emotions always fluctuate. Some mornings you feel inspired. Some mornings you don't. Some days you feel powerful. Some days you don't. Some days you feel unstoppable. Some days you feel uncertain. But disciplined people understand something that emotional people often miss. Feelings are visitors. Principles are residents. Feelings come and go. Principles stay. And when your life is built on principles instead of moods, consistency becomes possible. I want you to imagine something. Imagine two people starting in exactly the same place, same age, same resources, same opportunities, same potential. One spends every day reacting to news, reacting to social media, reacting to criticism, reacting to trends, reacting to circumstances. The other spends time reflecting, thinking, planning, learning, evaluating, improving. 5 years pass, 10 years pass, 15 years pass. Do you think their lives will look the same? Of course not, because reflection creates direction, and direction multiplies effort. Without direction, hard work becomes scattered. With direction, hard work becomes powerful. And intentional solitude is where direction is born. Think about the greatest breakthroughs of your life, the biggest decisions, the most important realizations, the moments that changed everything. Most likely, they didn't happen in the middle of chaos. They happened during moments of reflection. Moments when you could finally see clearly. Moments when your mind slowed down enough to recognize truth. That's why solitude is not weakness. It is strategic. It is productive. It is transformational. And yet many people avoid it because silence exposes things. Silence exposes fear. Silence exposes insecurity. Silence exposes self-deception. Silence exposes procrastination. Silence exposes unrealized potential. But here's the beautiful part. What silence exposes can also be transformed. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot improve what you refuse to examine. You cannot elevate what you refuse to confront. Growth requires honesty, and honesty often arrives in solitude. There was a period in my life when everything seemed uncertain, plans weren't working, goals felt distant, progress felt invisible. And like many people, my first instinct was to seek more information, more advice, more opinions, more strategies, more answers. But eventually I realized something. I wasn't lacking information. I was lacking clarity. So I started spending time alone every day, not trying to solve everything, just thinking, reflecting, listening, observing. And gradually, the fog began lifting, not because my circumstances changed overnight, but because my perspective changed. And perspective changes everything. Two people can experience the same challenge and produce completely different outcomes. One sees an obstacle. The other sees an opportunity. One sees a setback. The other sees a lesson. One sees defeat. The other sees preparation. And perspective determines which path becomes reality. That's why your mindset matters so much. Not because positive thinking magically solves problems, but because the way you interpret events determines the actions you take next. And actions create outcomes. Every great transformation begins with a shift in perception, a new way of seeing, a new way of thinking, a new way of responding. And those shifts often happen during quiet moments when the noise finally disappears. Let me ask you something. What if the very season you're trying to escape is actually preparing you? What if the loneliness is teaching strength? What if the uncertainty is teaching faith? What if the waiting is teaching patience? What if the silence is teaching wisdom? Because sometimes life removes the crowd so you can hear the lesson. Sometimes life removes distractions so you can discover purpose. Sometimes life slows everything down so you can finally understand what truly matters. And when you begin seeing solitude through that lens, it stops feeling like punishment. It starts feeling like preparation. Preparation for higher standards. Preparation for greater responsibility. Preparation for bigger opportunities. Preparation for a stronger version of yourself. Because every new level of life requires a new level of character. And character is forged quietly, like steel in fire, like roots beneath the ground, like a seed developing in darkness before it ever reaches the light. And when you understand that truth, you stop asking, why am I alone? You start asking, what is this season trying to teach me? And that question changes everything, because now every challenge contains a lesson. Every setback contains information. Every disappointment contains wisdom. Every difficult season contains hidden preparation. And once you begin looking for those lessons, you start discovering something extraordinary about human potential. You realize that most limitations are not physical. They are psychological. Most people are not held back by lack of ability. They're held back by limiting beliefs they've repeated for years, stories they've told themselves, labels they've accepted, assumptions they've never questioned. And one quiet afternoon, sitting alone with your thoughts, you may begin questioning those stories for the very first time. I want you to picture something before we leave here today. Picture yourself 10 years from now, 10 years older, 10 years wiser, 10 years beyond this very moment, and imagine standing face to face with the person you became. The question is not whether that person exists. That person is being created right now with every decision, every habit, every excuse, every action, every day you choose discipline. Every day you choose comfort. Every day you choose growth. Every day you choose delay. The person you will become is being built one choice at a time. Now imagine that future version of yourself looking directly into your eyes. What will they say? Will they thank you? Will they thank you for having the courage to walk alone when everyone else followed the crowd? Will they thank you for believing in yourself when evidence was scarce? Will they thank you for staying disciplined when motivation disappeared? Will they thank you for enduring temporary discomfort to create a meaningful life? Or will they ask the question that echoes through the hearts of millions of people who waited too long? What happened? What happened to the dreams? What happened to the goals? What happened to the promises you made to yourself? What happened to the person you said you were going to become? You see, life has a way of moving faster than we think. The years pass, the seasons change, the opportunities come and go. And one day, whether we like it or not, we must face the consequences of what we repeatedly did. Not what we intended to do, not what we planned to do, not what we hoped to do, what we actually did. Because destiny is not built from intentions. Destiny is built from actions. Small actions, repeated actions, consistent actions, the things nobody applauds, the things nobody sees, the things that happen in the quiet moments when character is making decisions. Let me tell you something. You do not need to be extraordinary today. You do not need to have all the answers today. You do not need to know every step today. You do not need perfect confidence today. You only need enough courage to take the next step. Just the next step. One disciplined day, one intentional choice, one honest conversation with yourself, one commitment kept, one excuse eliminated, 1 hour invested, one walk alone, one decision that your future self will be proud of. Because greatness is never built in a single moment. Greatness is built in moments, thousands of them. And every one of those moments asks the same question: who are you becoming? Not what are you earning? Not what are you owning? Not what are you posting? Who are you becoming? Because at the end of your life, your greatest achievement will not be what you accumulated. It will be who you became, the character you built, the courage you developed, the discipline you practiced, the lives you touched, the purpose you fulfilled, the potential you honored. And I need you to hear this with every part of your heart. There is more inside you than you have shown the world. There is more strength inside you, more wisdom inside you, more resilience inside you, more leadership inside you, more greatness inside you. The person you are capable of becoming is far beyond the person you currently see in the mirror, but that person is waiting for a decision. Not tomorrow, not next year, not when conditions are perfect. Today. Right now, this moment may look ordinary, but years from now, you may realize this was the moment. Everything changed. The moment you stopped waiting, the moment you stopped doubting, the moment you stopped negotiating with your potential, the moment you decided that your future would no longer be left to chance, the moment you decided to become intentional with your time, intentional with your thoughts, intentional with your habits, intentional with your purpose, intentional with your life. And when you leave here today, remember this: the crowd may never understand your journey. Some people may question your choices. Some people may doubt your vision. Some people may misunderstand your season of solitude. Walk anyway, grow anyway, believe anyway, persist anyway. Because every great life was built by people who were willing to continue when others stopped. People who stayed committed when others quit. People who remained faithful to the process when results were invisible. People who trusted the future they could not yet see. One day the sacrifices will make sense. One day the discipline will make sense. One day the lonely walks will make sense. One day the hard decisions will make sense. One day you will look back and realize that the moments that tested you were the moments that transformed you. So make a promise to yourself. A promise that no matter how difficult the road becomes, you will not surrender your future for temporary comfort. You will not trade your destiny for distraction. You will not abandon your purpose because progress feels slow. You will not allow fear to make decisions that belong to faith. You will keep moving. You will keep growing. You will keep learning. You will keep believing. You will keep becoming, because your story is not finished. Your best chapter is not behind you. Your greatest growth is not behind you. Your highest potential is not behind you. There is still more to build, more to learn, more to become. And somewhere in the future, A stronger version of you is waiting to thank you for refusing to quit. Waiting to thank you for choosing discipline over excuses. Waiting to thank you for choosing purpose over comfort. Waiting to thank you for choosing courage over fear. Waiting to thank you for choosing action over delay. So when you leave here today, walk with purpose. Think with intention. Act with discipline. Believe with conviction. And remember this unforgettable truth. The life you dream about is not created in a single breakthrough. It is created by the person you choose to become every single day. Start today. Start now. And never again underestimate what can happen when an ordinary person makes an extraordinary decision to become the very best version of themselves.